What's up guys, Gaming Show here back in the video. Today's video is what if Total Drama World Tour had 2 teams instead of 3. So obviously, as you know, World Tour had 3 teams. So I got rid of Team Amazon because it was the last team to arrive. So I'm going to hear me out this theory when I explain the teams. So in World Tour, the first 5 people to arrive were DJ, Leshanah, Harold, Lindsay, and Bridgett. But then what happens is Alejandro is the next person to arrive, so he's put on the team Chris. But now that there are more people, he's going on Team Victory. And then it's Tyler. And then Noah. So that's the full Team Victory. For Team Chris, we have Owen, Sierra, Cody, Heather, Courtney, Gwen, Izzy, and Ezekiel as the final members of Team Chris. And Duncan's just here because he's rather later on, but he still quits, so he's just kicked out of episode 1 like normal. So this is the cast. There's no Noah and Owen. They're still friends. They'll still talk on the ship, on the plane, and be friends. But they're just not on the same team. So episode 1, Duncan quits. Episode 2. So let's run it note by note. In the Team Victory, you have the stick. So Team Chris wouldn't be balancing on their goat now because Alejandro's not on their team to balance on it. Sierra does not swap teams because she's already with Cody and Izzy and her on the same teams, so there's really no need. And I think this race will actually be critical considering the fact that Sierra is the best at weaving the boats. And Team Victory would figure out a bit faster. They have a divining rod with Alejandro and Noah on their team. So this would have been an elimination if Ezekiel didn't lose a stick. Like, Ezekiel can't lose a goat in the same way he loses a stick. So this episode would be a non-elimination. So we get episode 2. Duncan quit, but in terms of an actual vote, no one's actually been eliminated yet. So episode 3, we have the Japan episode. So in the pinball challenge, I expect Alejandro to compete like he does originally. Tyler's still trying to fight with Lindsay at this point. She's not getting it. And Sierra and Cody would do it like they do on Team Chris. And lose like they do on Team Amazon. And Alejandro still does his monster idea for Team Chris. Because he knows Harold got as it is and Harold's quite outspoken. But Alejandro being Harold's teammate isn't looking to sabotage him now. So this is where we have the issue now. So Heather, Courtney, and Gwen all falling out, leaving Sierra, Cody, Izzy, Ezekiel, and Owen to do the commercial. It's a bit of a problem because Izzy's crazy, so she'll want her crazy ideas. Owen's chill, so I think he'll do whatever, and Ezekiel will just kind of tag along. So they do a commercial, but Team Chris came second originally, and Team Victory would lose it, so Team Amazon win. So, like, it annoys Harold that he can't do his commercial, but he gets over it. And whenever Courtney and Gwen all fall out, I think Izzy, Ezekiel, and Owen, but Cody there would only just do better in the challenge. So I think Sierra and Cody would still win it for their team. So I think Team Victory still lose. So Team Cross win. But who would Alejandro want to get rid of at this point? He wants Tyler around. I think Noah's not as suspicious yet of Alejandro. So he wouldn't get rid of Noah. So I guess Bridgett and Lindsay. But Harold. Because Harold's quite smart and quite outspoken. So I'm thinking that he would either get rid of Harold or Noah. Usually what happens in this episode is everyone will also DJ, but Harold quits. So DJ would actually be eliminated here. So DJ would be out, because I don't think Alejandro convinced Harold to quit this time because they didn't make his authentic Japan idea. So 4, this is the Yukon. So anything Yup can do, I can do better. Okay. So, as for the Yukon, it would be Courtney that's pulling for her team, and Tyler would pull for Team Victory. So I'm going to figure out who wins this challenge. Because Bridgett is stuck to a pole this time, because Alejandro doesn't gain anything by getting stuck to a pole, that now counts. So Team Chris win, because they tell Owen to lean his weight forward, because they comes first. So I'm actually unsure who'd win this challenge, because Owen cracks the ice. So I think Team Chris would lose because they don't have Tyler's super strong fingers. Courtney's pretty strong, but I'm not sure if she could pull up Owen. So I think here Tyler could get his team to the end, and Team Chris originally come. I think Team Victory win it just because I think Owen would crack the ice on his team, which would slow them down. So I think Team Victory would get that faster because Tyler would be pulling his team to the finish line, and they wouldn't be stopped because Bridgett's not stuck to a pole. So no one's stopping on this team. I don't see Harold or Zeke pulling anything amazing off. So I think Team Victory win this challenge. So they win. So Team Chris have to go to the elimination. Cody votes Sierra. Courtney, Gwen, and Sierra vote for Heather. And Cody gets Owen votes Sierra. Zeke would vote Sierra, because I feel like Zeke would vote Sierra. And Izzy would vote for Sierra. So when Sierra is eliminated here, I think Cody could convince Izzy, Owen, and Ezekiel to vote Sierra. Episode 5. This is Broadway, baby. Okay, so. Sorry, let me go through the votes again. So basically, these 4 vote for Sierra. I think Cody could convince Heather to vote Sierra because she's desperate. Zeke hasn't done that bad to Heather. Owen would probably vote for Heather. Izzy would probably vote for. No, I think Izzy would throw a vote, and then Sierra. I think Sierra's still gone. I think Sierra's gone here. I think Cody could get the numbers to convince him to win, and Izzy would be happy with that on that team because he's cool with Cody, and at this point he doesn't have Noah on the team. So I think Owen is the closest with Cody. And Zeke's kind of just wants to survive his first elimination. So Sierra is out. Episode 5. This is Broadway, baby. So I'm going to figure out who wins this challenge to get the meat grind episode 7. Heather would still do the carriage swap on Alejandro with Noah. So Noah sleeping in the carriage. I think Team Chris win this challenge and get the meat and grinder. Heather would still throw it out, but it's a non-elimination. Episode 6 is an aftermath. Episode 7 is just a slap revolution. So everyone would have, instead of 3 people, they would have 4 people competing now because there's 2 teams. I think that Team Chris would probably come first because Owen would eat their sausage. Actually, instead of Team Chris, Owen would eat the sausage. So I think they would actually come. They slide down Owen. So now who competes in this challenge? I'm going to say the strongest people compete. So that's Leshanah, Tyler, Harold, Noah. I'm just doing the guys who competed originally to try and see who would do that well. Because I don't think Tyler would compete. He didn't originally, so Tyler's one of my favourites. And Lindsay remembers Tyler, so well done, Tyler, my boy Tyler. And Heather competes. Izzy competes. Courtney and Owen. So Alejandro wouldn't tell Leshanah to seize the day now because they're on the same team. So he wouldn't make her jump off the platform. So Noah's definitely losing. I don't see Noah beating any of these people. Owen's definitely losing, so he can come back. Harold's going to lose. So could Leshanah can beat Heather, we know that. But it's could Courtney and Izzy beat Alejandro and Leshanah? I don't think Leshanah could beat Courtney, and Alejandro wouldn't get distracted by Sierra this time because she's not here. So I think that Team Victory is going to lose this challenge. Because I could see Alejandro still falling off because of Heather. And I think that Courtney, she's crazy strong, and I think I was meeting Courtney and Izzy, so I think they're ultimately winning this challenge. So, episode 7. Alejandro gets Lindsay and Bridgett and Tyler. Noah kind of gives out to him, but would Alejandro see Noah as a bigger threat than Harold? And I think, because I don't see Alejandro being able to beat Courtney or Izzy because they're crazy strong, so I think Noah would still give out to him about losing the challenge, but I don't think he would see Noah as a bigger threat than Harold, because he would see Leshanah and Harold they're not a couple, but they get on so well. So he's able to convince Lindsay and Bridgett to vote off Harold, because Harold's a very smart and quite a threatening player. And I think Alejandro would verify Harold as the bigger threat than Leshanah, even though Leshanah is more powerful and physically more powerful than Harold is. I think he would see his math skills as a bigger problem. I know he would realise Noah is an option, but he would see that there's this two-person alliance and realise that he has the numbers, so he can just get rid of Harold. Because Noah doesn't have Owen at this point, and Izzy, so Noah's just on his own. Alejandro could just convince one of the others to get rid of him next time they go to elimination. So Harold's eliminated. Episode 8, this is the Amazon race. So Lindsay, she was left. Gwen gets Team Victory to go right. They lose. And they probably would vote for Heather or Ezekiel, but it's a non-elimination. Episode 9, this is Can't Help Falling in Love. So everyone's with their teams this time because DJ is not DJ is not off by himself in the entire episode looking for the cursed statue. So because Lindsay almost won the challenge by herself, Alejandro, Tyler, Noah, Bridgett, and Leshanah could, with a full team, I think Team Victory just winning this challenge. I can't see. I know Team Chris have more people, but I think ultimately these guys will do a better job. And I could see Zeke maybe messing up or something, but Team Victory's winning this challenge. There's no way I could see them losing. And the song will be a bit different. I think he would be close with Owen at this point. I think Alejandro's going to realise that if they merge, Owen can be quite a threatening power duo, and he's got these interactions throughout the day. So Team Victory win. So Team Chris got elimination. So Courtney and Gwen vote for Heather. But would they think Ezekiel and Heather? And I think Courtney and Gwen would rather get rid of Heather because they hate her and rather just disliking Ezekiel, considering the fact it's a massive thing wrong. And Heather's done lots of things wrong. So Owen, Cody, and Heather. So Courtney and Gwen vote for Heather. Heather probably votes for Izzy. Cody and Owen and Ezekiel and Izzy vote for Heather. So I think Heather is actually out in episode 9. Which is kind of ironic considering she wins the season. Now she's one of the first voted off on her team. Episode 10. New Kids on the Block. So Courtney and Gwen will still start to find Duncan. I think it'd be funny if Izzy just rolled off with Ezekiel, Owen, and Cody. So, but it's a non-elimination. Episode 11. So this is Jamaica. Izzy still jumps out the plane while it's crashing. That's important. Owen's injured as well, so he's out. And Gwen gets electrocuted by the eels. Cody, Courtney, and Ezekiel have to do the rest of the challenge by themselves. Alejandro, being a smart guy, realizes that these three are on their own. And would think it's a good idea to sabotage Team Chris, because Alejandro at this point wouldn't know if Owen and Gwen were fit to play at this point, and Izzy. So Alejandro's plan is to punch the track like somehow he does sabotage DJ originally. By punching the track, they're going before them, sending them flying, which ultimately gets Alejandro Team Victory to win the challenge. So we can bring everyone else back. So Izzy's out. But there's one small difference that I'm going to exploit here, which is when DJ lost on Team Victory, Izzy wasn't his teammate to vote for, so he couldn't vote for Izzy. But because Ezekiel, Gwen, Courtney, Cody, and Owen were Izzy's teammate, I think they could mumble jumble the way out the situation just so the team has more members. Like if I voted 2 people off, I think Chris would think, let's say Zeke goes, it'd be unfair to say that 2 people will be voted off. So ultimately, that's what I think would happen. Episode 12, non-elimination. Episode 13, this is where Duncan would come back. So Duncan would still return. I'll just plop him up here for now to tell you what team he's on. So episode 13, this is Icy London. There is actually a difference. Zeke is not Jack the Ripper this time. So that's important. So I'm just going to say that Chef is now Jack the Ripper. And Alejandro, at the start of this episode, he's talking around, so he gets caught by Jack the Ripper. Noah and Owen find Jack the Ripper, so it's whoever I think would kind of find it first. Cody won't get caught with Sierra because he's not on his own. I think Zeke could be really good at this because he was originally when he was Jack the Ripper. And I expect Lindsay to get captured and Tyler gets caught on the stretch table again. Bridgett as well, because I don't see Bridgett being good at something like this. I think Leshanah and Noah could actually bring back Jack the Ripper. I think Jack the Ripper they could bring back. So Duncan is second prize. So he will on the team victory. So Team Chris win this challenge because Courtney and Gwen find him. So pretty unfairly, that's what would happen. And everyone's annoyed at Noah, so Alejandro gets everyone to vote for Noah, so Noah's unfairly booted off. Except it's worse this time because he has nobody on his side. So it's a shame. Noah's out. Episode 14, this is Grease's Pieces. So Gwen and Duncan still kiss and Tyler still witnesses. So in the board challenge, Duncan and Gwen still do it. Gwen still wins that challenge. Alejandro overhears the song. In the fighting challenge, it'd be Courtney and Cody. And Leshanah and honestly Tyler. I think Tyler would still do it. No, I think Courtney and Cody would win that challenge. I think Courtney could win it by herself. Actually, maybe Owen, but in the hurdles competition, Alejandro tries to compete because he's the only person that has it for team victory. And on Team Chris, they choose to have probably Zeke. Alejandro tries to show off still because Alejandro's very full of himself. I don't think he's heavy racing. I think he'd be a bit of a show off to crashing the hurdles and causing the ties. So in the tiebreak is pretty unchanged. Obviously, it will probably be Tyler and Cody. So Cody would still win for Team Chris when Alejandro reveals the kiss. So everyone would vote. Actually, would Alejandro think at this point Duncan is worth it over Leshanah? I think maybe he would. So everyone votes for Duncan, but it'd be a non-elimination. As Chris would want to keep this as a non-elimination. Save Duncan. Episode 15, this is the X-Files. So Owen still gets captured to Area 51. Alejandro and Tyler are off together. Lindsay's with them, Bridgett and Leshanah. Duncan's off by himself, and Cody's his candidate again. So Courtney, I'm thinking that Courtney might not throw the challenge. She knows that she can't convince Owen, and she can't convince Cody. So she thinks that Zeke is her only option. So she tries to convince Ezekiel, and Tyler finds the alien after pretending to want to be his friend. Cody calls himself again. So him and Zeke are just running away, and Sierra's not there to destroy the clone. But Zeke realizes, hey, this is an artifact, right? We could lure it back to Chris. And Cody would agree, so they're luring the clone back. Courtney and Gwen, Leshanah probably finds that Bridgett and Lindsay, I ask them something to do, so they're going to find that portal. Duncan would still make Alejandro and Tyler. Duncan missed the alien off Alejandro, which ultimately sends him flying into the control panel, which releases Owen, and Owen runs back to save the rest of his team. Tyler would still run with it. Actually, they're not carrying Owen this time. But I think Tyler would still screw up for his team, and Team Chris would win. So would Alejandro get rid of Tyler here? Is Tyler completely screwed over? Because he would see Leshanah and Bridgett as a bigger threat. So would Alejandro think getting rid of Tyler is worth it? Unfairly booted here. So Tyler's eliminated. But let me know in the comments what you think of that one, because that was one I kind of struggle with, that elimination, because I could see Leshanah going, or maybe Bridgett. But I think Alejandro would realise that Lindsay and Tyler's a couple would be a problem with him, so I think it's a bit more believable for why he would want to get rid of Tyler, even if he was more loyal than Duncan. Episode 16, Pitney Hanging Dork. It takes throwing a emu, so I think Team Chris will lose this challenge, because Courtney's probably trying to throw. Team Victory winning. Duncan and Alejandro were really good originally. I expect everyone else to be good. Duncan would throw the dingo at Cody. And you're going to see it doesn't really matter why that makes a difference, because I think everyone's just going to vote for Owen votes Courtney. Courtney votes for Gwen. Gwen votes for Courtney. Cody's spinning, so he's probably going to vote for Gwen. And Zeke is the swing vote. And you know what? I think because of season 1, he votes for Courtney. So Courtney is actually eliminated. Episode 17. There's no rebuild Gwen's face because Gwen is still here. And Owen would still be captain, so they would turn back. But it's an elimination. Episode 18, Blaney would join. Actually, Bridgett is still in the game. So would Blaney join this time? I don't think Blaney would actually join. I don't think Blaney joins. I think she doesn't join this time. Because she doesn't get sent to Siberia this time by Blaney. Jeff isn't furious at Blaney because she didn't send Bridgett there. So I think that I just think if it gets to the end, we'll know to answer the question, unless it was Sierra. But then that'd be very, very skeptical for me to say that she would get one of the 5 Chris cans gets to the end. So I think I'm just going to stick to what originally happened here, as I had no reason to believe it would change. So Blaney would still join, but it's not an elimination. Merge day. This is the merge cast. The only difference we have is we have quite a lot of differences. We have Leshanah, Bridgett, and Lindsay, and Ezekiel in Gwen instead of Courtney, Heather, and Sierra. And Ezekiel's next draft. Bye bye Team Victory. Bye bye Team Chris. So who did they pair with? We have 5 guys, 5 girls. So I'm going to spin a wheel to decide who gets what pairs, as I thought was the fairest way around the episode. So let's begin. So here are the pairs. I'm doing first guy, first girl. I thought it was the fairest way in the episode, because in the actual episode it's a roulette wheel, so I thought this was the fairest way. So Blaney. Now it's first guy, first girl, so let's see who the first guy will be with Blaney. And Cody. Okay. So I thought it was first by an episode. So the next pair is Bridgett. And Bridgett's partner will be. So I thought this would be interesting to see who she gets. Is it Ezekiel? Oh, it's Alejandro. Okay. So we have the next pairing. And then we can continue what actually happens in the challenge. So Lindsay. And we have Duncan. So this is the 4th pair. So the person remaining will end up getting the last pair. So Gwen or Leshanah. So Leshanah. That leaves Owen and Ezekiel. Ezekiel, okay. So Zeke. So I'm just going to put whoever gets to the tightrope. So who would fall? And these are the pairs. So Alejandro makes a good point in the visual timelines and pairs major threat at this point with all of his alliances with Duncan He's got Lindsay's vote, Bridgett and Leshanah, so he would fall. So him and Lindsay would fall. Owen isn't really that good at this challenge, so I think him and Gwen fall. Blaney doesn't strike me as overly strong, and I don't think Cody could carry Blaney, so I think they fall. So it's between Duncan and Bridgett and Leshanah and Ezekiel. And I think Ezekiel's not going to be able to carry Leshanah, so I think Duncan and Bridgett would win this challenge. Now, granted, they wouldn't bicker as bad as Courtney and Duncan was, but I think they'd be able to realistically get across, and Bridgett is a really good surfer, so she has really good balance. So I could see Bridgett being really good at this challenge. So they have immunity, which annoys Alejandro. So Graham was back. And Owen still blurted out as the fan favourite, so everyone would vote for Owen, as they would be afraid it's a popularity contest. So Owen's eliminated. Episode 20, this is Chinese fake out. We have an extra person because in Jamaica we didn't have anyone voted off, and Egypt we didn't lose anyone. So I'm just going to put him against the eating portion of the trial. There's no one obvious that would fail in this challenge. I don't see Zeke failing, so let's get to the eating portion. Bridgett, Alejandro won't discuss food because it's disgusting and he's got no one to cheat for him now, so Alejandro will be out first. Cody won't eat the donkey. Bridgett, Samaritan Collections have been seen the eating challenge, so she would fail at this. Lindsay was good at the action eating challenge. That's because TJ accidentally put Mama Spice to food. That's not because she has an iron stomach, so she would fail. Blaney would be called out for cheating. Zeke would be pretty good because he did eat disgustingly out on the plane, rat cheese. So I think Ezekiel actually wins immunity. I think Zeke wins immunity, which would be pretty cool. I think Zeke winning immunity. Lashana's really good at eating, Gwen drank out of the toilet, Duncan's really good at eating challenges, and I think Zeke would actually win the challenge, which would annoy Alejandro because he probably wants to get rid of Ezekiel. So Zeke wins immunity. Now this was a double elimination. Now it was because it was a tie, but I'm going to keep it as a double elimination. That's what it was. So Duncan and Gwen are together. I feel like Gwen could convince Zeke. Cody's with Gwen, but she wants to get rid of Duncan. Would Alejandro think getting rid of Duncan is worth it than any of the girls? So Blaney's gone. She's definitely out. So let's go through the voting process. So Alejandro, actually, I think, yeah, so Zeke still wins. So Alejandro, so Duncan votes, he doesn't have the numbers to get rid of Alejandro yet. So Duncan would vote for Leshanah. Alejandro would probably vote for Leshanah. Cody votes for Duncan. Gwen votes for Blaine. These two vote for Blaney. Cody votes for Duncan, that's one Duncan. Leshanah votes Duncan, that's two Duncan. Bridgett votes for Duncan, that's three. Zeke votes for Blaney. Lindsay votes for Duncan, and Alejandro would vote for Blaney. So Duncan and Blaney are both sent home. Episode 21, this is African Life Safari. So we wouldn't be hunting Ezekiel now because he's still in the competition. So I imagine that it would just be a lion. And Alejandro's plan is to trip Duncan in the thorn bush while he's not paying full attention. Tell him to wash and lower Ezekiel. This plan could still work because Cody's with Gwen for the entire challenge. I'm thinking that Alejandro would use Ezekiel for this. But I think Alejandro would think, would he rather have Ezekiel on his side or would he rather get rid of one of the girls? And I think he would want to get rid of Leshanah because Lashana's been seen to get on with Lindsay and Bridgett, and Gwen, she's a more social threat. So I think Alejandro would trip Ezekiel into the thorn bush, gets him to wash, and wins immunity. But because Ezekiel doesn't have many allies, I think Alejandro could just convince Zeke it was a genuine accident. So I think Zeke would probably listen to Alejandro. And Lindsay and Zeke So I think Alejandro would get Gwen and Cody would vote, and Zeke would vote for Leshanah. Lindsay, Alejandro, and Bridgett vote Leshanah. And I think Leshauna's out here, which I think we kind of a pretty shocking reveal. Leshauna's eliminated. Episode 22. This is Raff Fooey. Alejandro gets to the top, races the boulders. Like he does originally, Alejandro does get there first. It's not too unfaithful. So he does get there first. And Alejandro wins me. I think he wins again. So Gwen and Cody convince Ezekiel to vote for Lynn. I don't think Zeke would vote for Lindsay, though. I think they convince him to vote for Bridgett. Alejandro would want to get rid of Bridgett. So he tells the three to vote for Bridgett. This wasn't their idea. They were going to vote for one of them. But Alejandro tells them to vote for Bridgett because he sees Zeke and Lindsay are so pathetic. He'd rather get rid of Bridgett. So I think here, Bridgett would get voted off. Actually, Bridgett gets voted off. Episode 23. This is Drumheller. So we know what everybody else makes. Alejandro and Cody make Cody makes that donkey. Gwen's quite artistic, so she'd be good at this challenge. I don't see Zeke or Lindsay making anything substantial, so I don't think they'd be able to win the first part. So Alejandro has that pickaxe. Now Alejandro finds a barrel early on, but then gets trapped by Heather. Now that Heather's not there, I think with equipment, Alejandro would just do the challenge fast and hopefully win. So Alejandro wins immunity. So it seems Gwen and Cody are going to vote for Ezekiel, and Alejandro, Ezekiel, and Lindsay are going to vote for Gwen. Now, this would be a good opportunity for Alejandro to betray Ezekiel. But who would Alejandro want to face in the final four? Because he doesn't know we're going to have a problem in episode 25, but I'll cover it when we get there. So, Alejandro has noticed throughout these challenges, Zeke isn't that good at challenges normally, whereas Gwen has made it to a finale before, competed in more seasons, and would be a more threatening player in the finale. So I think Alejandro would see Gwen as a bigger threat. So Gwen's out. Episode 24. This is Hawaii Styles. This is basically winning the items for your team. And the plane doesn't blow up this time. So that's something to keep in mind. So Alejandro and Zeke probably wouldn't have that many helpers on their side. Basically, the episode 24, Gwen's and Drumhouse, so she can't do it. I'm expecting that Owen would do it for Cody. For Alejandro, it'll be Heather. And Zeke's Lindsay, it'd probably be honestly Tyler. I think Tyler. And then Lindsay. I think Beth would just do it for Zeke because nobody else would volunteer. Maybe Harold, but I don't know. And it wouldn't be a Heather situation where everyone would hate Ezekiel. It's just that he hasn't got many people. I think a lot of people would kind of root for him because he's the underdog. He's the first boot of season 1. But other than that, I think Cody would win the wheelbarrow. Lindsay gets second place, so she gets the stroller, and Alejandro and Zeke get nothing, but it's an elimination. Episode 25, so this is the race to Hawaii. So I'm thinking that Alejandro would just take I'm thinking that Chris would just take Gwen and fly the plane out of Hawaii because he has no real reason to leave it there. So Alejandro's just racing to the end, so everyone's just all on the train together. Cody can't make hot aeroplane parts because he hasn't got any aeroplane parts to build it with. And Cody gives up because he's facing Alejandro and Heather. But now that Zeke and Lindsay are here, I'm not sure. I think Cody would still give up, but I think Ezekiel will actually be the one to give the speech to Cody. I think Zeke would give the speech and would make Cody continue. So Alejandro gets to the end and Lindsay. And Alejandro gets to the end. So I think Alejandro gets to the end. I think he gets to the end. So I think Zeke and Lindsay are traveling together. So episode 25, 4th place, Cody. So Alejandro gets the end. And it's the tiebreaker between Lindsay and Ezekiel. So the tiebreaker is, this is the fire dance. So Lindsay and Ezekiel have to rescue Alejandro. I expect Alejandro would distract Lindsay, similar how he does Cody. Heather does to Cody originally. And I think that's how Zeke wins that tiebreaker. I've never had Ezekiel as a finalist before, so that's pretty cool. So they're helpers. Alejandro picks Heather. And you know what? Courtney. And Ezekiel would pick Lindsay. And I think he picks Harold because Harold wanted to help the original. And it was shown that him and Harold are friends. They were showing an island, they had a bit of a friendship. So he would pick Harold. So I expect Alejandro's helpers would make the dummies faster than Zeke's helpers. And they each get winning endings. So in Alejandro's winning ending, the cage falls on them. Alejandro breaks out the balls, races to the top, and he gets Heather or Courtney to distract Ezekiel. But if you prefer, Zeke gets to the top. Harold trips Alejandro and Lindsay stops Heather. Then Courtney would be arguing with Duncan. I think Duncan could be the deciding winner to let Ezekiel win. So I would have Ezekiel as my canon winner. But if you prefer, you could have Alejandro. So thank you guys for watching. This is the elimination order and how I think the season would have gone if there were 2 teams instead of 3 in Total Drama World Tour. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Comment, like, subscribe, and let me know any of the what ifs in the comments. And peace for all.